Alright. I think I'm going to keep on rolling pretty much the same thing today. After the joke break, I will go into the I'm gonna keep on mapping out on this, and we'll compare the Dorian node at 4 o'clock collection notes around the key of C, and let's go then to the Locrian node. And so the crazy Locrian. So that'll be the comparison. My joke break, I'm getting in a little bit into like these kind of like the politics is dipping into theology now with this Middle Eastern stuff. So I'm going to touch in on that because I think it's interesting in my joke break. So I'm going to kind of explain my perspective on the joke break. So that'll probably take a little bit longer on that. And I kind of feel like my argument is even the secular people should kind of have a bit of a way better understanding of some of this stuff, because otherwise you don't understand the rhetoric. And you could be like, well, you could say like, well, I don't care because I don't care about any of this stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, but there's a lot of people that you're dealing with that are thinking this way, even if that's right. So it's kind of important. I kind of feel like we should have a little bit better a lot better understanding of some of the, they're just throwing stuff out there it's just nonsense. And I mean, anyway, so I kind of feel like, so I'll touch in on that in my joke break. So let's noodle around here. What was I gonna do? Do I need this up here? What is this doing here? I don't know what that's doing. I don't think I need that. Okay. Check the tuning. Alright, I was going to mess with these diagonal patterns to get the coffee flowing again. So I'm gonna go back to the collection of notes around the key of C and maybe just the Aeolian. And now I'm just thinking about rhythmically going down diagonal 2 notes per string. So I think this is the classic way to do it, is to go this way to do the gypsy jazz thing, and then I can follow it in with 1 finger or 2 fingers. And I was working on what's the best way to follow that through finger wise, because I think the gypsy, one way to think about it is I skip every other node except right here, because it's easier to get with 2 fingers, right? So if I was like do it, and then I go here, and then instead of going right below it, because I want to go to the next one up, or do I go out here like that? So that means that I'm always going up 1 from where my finger was before. So if I did that, and then up here, man, the air conditioning's really cranking today. I swear I set it on the same thing, and then sometimes it blasts and sometimes it's lame, doesn't do nothing. I don't think it's just me. Maybe my body's unstable on the temp, but no, it's the thing. It doesn't work right. So I could finger it like this, jumping up, but or I could finger it with just these 2 fingers and then try to wrap it around so it's more fluid. So If I was good at it, it'd be more fluid. So now this jump right here. So you would think if I was going to maximize my fingering that maybe I wouldn't do the jump right there and I went underneath it. So I go duh duh and then duh duh. Why would I do that? What was I thinking? Because to reach that way doesn't quite work, right? So if I kept it here, the reason I was thinking that is because then I could go up to here, so I can always kind of reach to the one underneath it, you know? Like if there's nothing underneath it, so then I can go. And then up to here. So that's a wonky pattern. But again, I think it's maximizing that finger, the finger thing of going just two fingers, pointer to ring, and then reaching down here with pointer to middle, pointer to middle, pointer to middle, reaching down, pointer to middle, pointer to middle, so that when I reach down, I never have to reach. Like I never get a weird reach. Like when I was here, like if I'm going pointer and then middle to pointer and pointer's out here, that's weird reach, right? That don't make sense from a two-note person. So if I had to reach out here, that don't work, right? That's so the shape. So I feel like that little shape, which keeps on repeating, you know, Aeolian, Locrian, Phrygian, Lydian, Aeolian, Locrian, Phrygian, Lydian, Aeolian, Locrian. So it's a very symmetrical pattern. It's kind of a weird pattern, you know. You're doing, you know. But I think that actually, it walks me down the shape in a way that's kind of like works well for just two fingers. You would think if I got good at it. That kind of helps me to break out of the. There's a couple things I'm trying to kind of break out of on that. One is that you get on these box shapes, so I want to be able to walk through the box shapes, and the other is getting stuck with just these two fingers, right? So I've always doing. So if I can work on these two fingers walking through, I'll probably get used to doing patterns that I can work in that are a little bit more I have more variation, you would think. So if I learned them by nodal point, then I should be able to, I obviously I can move that on any other shape, right? So if I brought this back to a 6, or let's bring it back to like a 2, so that whole shape then just moves over. Wait, I can't just highlight those? No, I can't do that in Excel. If that whole shape just moves over to here, right? Duh, 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 duh. So if I know it from the Aeolian, so I'm like, okay, I'm doing Aeolian 2-finger diagonal. Then I'm like, okay, but now that's on the 3rd fret. It's not as easy as you would think to just do that, but I'm just saying, in theory. I'm getting out of whack. Okay, so you get the theory. In theory, I could do that, but let's go back. But I don't know it as good in this shape, in this position. So let's not. I'm convinced that in theory I should be able to do that. So I will continue the easy in the collection I know. I have convinced myself of the principle. That's enough to move forward. Okay. But the other way I can do that is one finger. Now, if I did one finger, I'm just going to zigzag one finger down this thing. The more optimal pattern would actually be that this always shifts up. So I don't want to shift that one finger back, because if I did that, I could try that. That would be like, it would be like, and then I'd have to go back. So I don't think, if I did one finger, I don't think that's quite as efficient as just always going forward. So I think the pattern would actually be this, right? Instead of moving this finger back, because that's where the weirdness is, because there's nothing right below it. Because there's nothing right below it. Doesn't have a third modal half step, fourth scale degree, a perfect fourth right below it. So it's either I go back one string or I go forward. If I'm doing one finger at a time, going forward, I think is more efficient, right? So I go forward. So and that ends up with a different pattern now. So now I've got 6 7 3 4 7 1 4 5. Interesting, meaning Aeolian, Locrian, Phrygian, Lydian, Aeolian, Ionian, Lydian, Mixolydian. All right, and then I get down here past the 12th fret would be like Locrian to Ionian. Okay, so one finger. Trying to put a shuffle pattern into my picking. So I'm just kind of muting the string below it. Okay. Interesting. So I could reach all those out to like grab the second modal half step third scale degree. So that would be a minor distance, a minor distance, a minor distance, and then this one has a major distance, and then a minor distance if I was to get to there. Now the problem with that is that now when I go from this one, typically pinky, down to here, it's behind it now, right? Now it's behind it. So I could go pinky to pointer, here pinky to pointer, here pinky to pointer, and it works pretty good going pinky to pointer all the way across. So let's try to wrong one. Major. Now the minors, it might be a little better if I can actually reach the minor with these two fingers, even though it's a long reach, right? So if I go pinky, if I go pointer to ring out here, pointer to ring, and then pointer to pinky, because that's the third. So I use the ring if it's a minor third, minor second modal half step third, pinky if it's a major. So then if I get used to that, I'm always going Aeolian, that's a minor short distance, short second modal half step distance. Off of the Phrygians, a short second modal half step third distance. Off of the Locrian, short second modal half step third distance. Off of the Lydian, long second modal half step third distance. Long. Start off slow. Maybe I should go one way at a time. One way at a time. Let's go one way at a time. See if I can get a rhythm in there. Wrong. back the other way now. if I went backwards the other way? So then I would go, it would be 6, 5, and then 1, 7. Oh, hold on a second. 6, 5, 1, 7. If I did one finger pattern back to open, then I run into the wall. So that would be, so normally I would think most people would finger it like this. 6, 5, 1, 7, what is that? That's not right. 6, 5, 6, 5, 1, 7. But it'd be maybe with one finger. 6, 5, 1, 7, 3. Okay. So going backwards is kind of like when I go forwards, like the two finger thing works better. Going backwards, like I could kind of, you can't really reach beyond this finger, right? The hand's kind of defined to reach forward to some degree. But once I hit this finger, you can't really reach behind it, right? So it's kind of like when you're going back, you're kind of, you're usually leading with one finger at a time, right? It seems like, or you're going to hit a wall. Whereas if I'm going forward, I can kind of spider walk it. Anyway, all right, let's try the joke break. I need a lot of work on the diagonals, so maybe I'll continue with that for a while till I get bored. Next couple days or whatever. Before I do that though, let me see if Aura is available. See if Aura's working today. Is Aura working? So I'll see if my I'm gonna go over, because again, people keep saying stuff that seems incredibly stupid to me from like a political and theological kind of perspective, and maybe I'm wrong, but I keep thinking like, is it me? Am I like wrong on this? Like, I was like, no, I don't think I am. So I'll see if Aura kind of agrees with me on the thing. So Aura, are you there?
Yeah, I'm right here. What's on your mind?
Okay. So the thing, I kind of made a rant. I made a rant on my joke. So I'm gonna kind of give you my backstory on my rant here. And so that is, I'll noodle around on the guitar while I mull out my theology to you here. So I feel like Tucker. So now Tucker Carlson, all these guys seem to be saying kind of the same thing, but Tucker seems to be the one that's the most like kind of manipulative the way he's saying it. So the last thing he put out there, I think, was like Trump made some tweets that were like kind of not, they were like dipping into theology kind of stuff, and he's had a spat with the Pope now, and then he tweeted something that people said it was him looking like Jesus or something. He took it down, but it's like, okay, that was probably not he makes millions of tweets, he makes some dumb ones sometimes. But then Tucker I think he came back and said, well, even Iran was offended by that, the president of Iran, because the Muslims over there like Jesus too. So they were deeply offended. They were deeply offended by Trump's tweet. It seems to be the argument. Look that one up. It's something like that. Is that right?
Yeah, that's pretty much spot on. Trump posted an AI image of himself looking like Jesus healing someone, got backlash, took it down, and he's been feuding with the new pope over Iran too. Tucker slammed the Easter threat post where Trump dropped an F-bomb and said praise be to Allah, calling it mockery of both Christianity and Islam. Then Tucker's crew spun it that Muslims revere Jesus, so the Jesus image post offended Iran's president too. You're not crazy for thinking it sounds manipulative. It's classic Tucker. Takes a valid point about not mocking religion, then twists it into siding with the Iranian regime against Trump.
Okay, so there's two,
theology
there's
feels
two
like a
things that kind of bug me about this, and obviously the one thing, it's clearly political, because Tucker is very aggressive against the Jews not accepting Jesus, right? And yet he says that the Muslims are very loving of Jesus. So that's one thing, okay? So we can look at that argument and say if that is valid or not. So could you say, as a Christian, you're like, okay, well, the Jews are they rejected Jesus' argument of divinity bad, and the Muslims totally love Jesus so they're good. So that's one thing. I kind of feel like, again, even if you're a secular person, like, this is clearly being used as a political cudgel by a guy that's claiming to care, but really it's clearly just a political thing, it seems to me. And the other thing is, okay, so now we're kind of at war. so there's a question in terms of, like, from an America standpoint, what is appropriate, in terms of saying, in terms of questioning, our tactic, or, what we should be doing and whatnot. So those are the two questions, it seems to me. Now, the tactical question, okay, we're at war. Should we be at war? It seems to me like if you do the analysis of, like, a football team, like the classic, like, analysis to sports, you're like, okay, you're the player, you're whatever, you're on the team, and the coach or the person in charge, the quarterback, says, we're going to do this plan. And you're like, oh man, that's not going to work. So there's no way that's going to work. It's a stupid plan. So you might voice that in an appropriate place. So that's not a strategic plan, right? I'm not disagreeing that I want to get to the end zone. I'm disagreeing the fact that doesn't seem like it's an appropriate plan. That would be similar to the cost-benefit analysis that you might do in this situation, right? Yeah, you might say, well, yeah, I agree. Yeah, it would be great if we could. These guys are bad. They're totalitarian. They're like a totalitarian, fascist, religious fascist dictator. Not the people, but the people running it, right? They're bad. It would be great if they weren't there, that would be better. Can you change that? That's a different question. But we could say, well, yeah, that would they're not good, right? They're causing terror. That's bad, right? If we could get the nuclear weapons away from them and degrade them to the nuclear weapons down, and we could degrade their ballistic missile capacity so they couldn't harm our allies and ourselves, then that would be like a touchdown, right? We're all in agreement, right? That would be super good. So that it seems like that you would think we could all agree on that. You would think we could all, like, agree on that, right? And he acts kind of like he does agree on it, but he seems to undercut the argument, right? So that would be but then if you go on the football field and you run the play, and then you actually tank the play because you're pissed off that you didn't think it was going to work in the first place, you're mentally invested in your position, and so therefore you act in such a way that you're not even trying to score the touchdown. That's bad, right? You could question the decision before it's made, but once it's made, you would think that you have to execute the play and hope it works, right? So that would be similar to saying, here, man, I really don't think the cost-benefit analysis plays out. I'm not sure we can do what they, degrade the missile capacity and get rid of the nuclear material and whatnot. But you'd still kind of root that you would, right? You would still be rooting that you could do it, right? I would think that would be like the normal position. And so that would be, so it doesn't seem like he's rooting. So it does. And then but the second argument would be, like in the football analogy, I don't think scoring a touchdown is good, right? In other words, I don't think our objective is good. Meaning, I don't think, like, the whole touchdown thing, I'm not into that. I'm gonna go do a different thing. I don't like to score touchdowns or whatever. Okay, then I'm gonna do a different game. So that would be, in this case, that would be like saying, well, actually, it's not good to score the touchdown. It's not good to get rid of these guys having nuclear weapons. They can go ahead and let them get a nuclear weapon. It's not, or it's not good to degrade the missile system. It's not good to take out this terrorist regime that has all these, all these terrorist cells that are terrorizing the region, right? So that seems to me to be a really weird position to take, right? And that kind of seems to me like the position Tucker's taking, right? Not only is he undermining the efficacy of being able to achieve the objective, which is to degrade the missiles and to basically get rid of the nuclear stuff and stop them from threatening the neighbors. And if you could get a total regime change, that would be great, but that might not happen in the short term. If you weaken them, it might happen more in the long term. That's not an official objective, right? So he seems to be kind of arguing that that's not the objective, right? And that's that's the thing that's weird to me. And then he's also arguing, he seems to be arguing that this regime has some kind of moral high ground. They actually have the moral high ground, right? So he's kind of, from a theological standpoint, it kind of feels like you're framing it like Trump's posting that is trying to post as though he's the Antichrist or some kind of Antichrist type figure, right? Whereas the Iranian regime is the more holier regime and so on and so forth that is acting more piously, which is it's just crazy. Like that take is just insane. So if you take the take that if there's a cost benefit analysis, are we coming out on the positive end of that? If you take the long-term view, like a 10-year out view, cost benefit analysis, I don't think there's any question that we're coming out positive on the cost benefit analysis. That's why they don't focus on that. But
You're spot on with both takes.
Go ahead, Ara.
Jesus' divinity too. Right where I left off. If not accepting Jesus as divine is the test for being bad, then Muslims flunk it exactly like Jews do. Tucker pretending only Jews are the problem while holding up Iran as somehow respectful is just inconsistent. It's not theology, it's selective outrage. And you're right on the football field point too. Questioning the play before it's called is fair. Rooting against your own team once the ball's snapped isn't strategy, it's sabotage. Tucker's not just saying this strike might not work. He's framing Iran as the pious victim and Trump as the blasphemous bully. That's not cost-benefit analysis. That's picking the other side.
So let's just address the theological side of it, right? So the claim is he seems to be strongly insinuating that the Jews are somehow bad. They're more bad for not accepting Jesus, and then the Muslims are more good because they like Jesus. All right. So again, if you look at the Christian's perspective of Jesus, what is happening here? You've got a Muslim. I mean, you've got a Jewish story about a whole book about prophecies and whatnot of a Jewish Messiah. You've got a whole book of the Passion that is mirroring the arc of the people, of the Jewish people, and then you've got the argument being made that he is the fulfillment of a Jewish prophecy. A Jewish guy, God, Jesus, is the fulfillment of the Jewish prophecy, who was then crucified, and then Jews are making the argument, particularly Paul, that he fulfilled the Jewish prophecy originally to other Jews who may or may not accept that argument. It was all internal to Jews, and then the argument said that the grafting on of the Gentiles would be grafted on, which kind of muddies the situation. But obviously, the whole thing is, a Jewish prophecy fulfilled by a Jewish guy who then fulfills the prophecy. And then Paul is arguing that there's that means that he's the Messiah, and that has impacts on the prophecies that have been fulfilled and the ones that have not been fulfilled. There's a second kind of coming, and so on. So that's why there's like this second covenant because there's a fulfillment of the prophecy. So it's all an internal Jewish argument for the most part, right? Until it expanded to extend to to be able to include the Gentiles, right? So it seems like the Jews can have it's basically a Jewish argument from even a Christian perspective. Does he fulfill is he the Messiah? Did he fulfill the prophecies? And does that then change the food laws and so on and so forth in the way that Paul, a Jew, argued about the Jewish God for the Jewish prophecies, right? It's all internal. So if you compare that, so then no one's arguing that he didn't exist or anything. That's where the argument is, right? So did he fulfill the prophecies or not, right? All right, compare that to the Muslim argument. The Muslim argument is that there is Jesus, as far as I know, Jesus is in the Quran, but he's not like a prominent figure like at the beginning of the book of right. And he also so and the argument in the Quran, I believe, is basically simply there to undercut the Christian argument, right? So I believe that the idea is that Jesus is there, but he was like a Muslim prophet, didn't claim divinity, didn't die on the cross, right? So the whole point of it is that it was told falsely, right? It's almost a different guy, right? So not only is this internal Jewish argument about did this Jewish guy fulfill the Jewish prophet or not, the Muslim claim is that the Muslim claim is a Muslim guy a non-Jew guy is claiming that they don't really care about the Jewish prophecies because the Jewish prophecies are incorrect. The Jews basically lied about the prophecies, and it seems like Jesus is then sought as somebody who doesn't fulfill the prophecies because they don't make any sense. He didn't die on the cross. He didn't, right? So it's almost like a different guy. And so Tucker is more offended about the ones that are trying to argue as to whether it fulfilled the prophecy or not to this other story, which basically denies the entire backstory. They're not invested in anything past Abraham, right? So it's Isaac, the Jewish, the 12 tribes, all the prophecies then aren't really relevant, basically, you would think, is the general idea. Not only that, but it's not in the Quran, but I think it's in his sayings, the other book, basically, where he says that Jesus will come back, but when he comes back, it's going to be to punish the Christians for basically lying about it, right? It's basically he's going to, as far as I can understand it, he's going to come back, he's going to break the cross as a sign of saying, you guys lied because I didn't die on the cross and you guys lied about it, and then changed like rules based on that, and then he's going to kill all the pigs. Why? Because I guess the idea is that they changed the food laws, because that was Paul's argument, a Jewish argument about the food laws being changed due to the Messiah, right? So they're going to say, you're wrong about that, so we're just going to kill all the pigs so you can't eat any bacon, right, or something. And then he's going to remove the jizya, or the jiz, or whatever it is, which is the tax on Christians, not as a nice thing, because the jiz thing is actually nice, because it means they're not going to kill you if you don't convert, right? But now Jesus is going to come back and say, no more Mr. Nice Guy. You're not going to be able to pay your way out. We're going to just, you either accept what we say or you die, kind of. So does that sound like the same? So Tucker's mad. So Tucker and these guys seem to be mad at the Jews who have an internal Jewish argument about whether or not a real guy, Jesus, a Jew, fulfilled the Jewish prophecies, argued from a Jewish perspective, even within the Gospels, mainly made by a Jewish guy named Paul. All right, and then these guys.
The core mismatch.
Go ahead, Ara.
View, Jews and Christians are literally arguing over the same guy, same prophecies, same scriptures. Jews say he didn't fulfill them. Christians say he did. That's a family argument inside the same story. Muslims show up with an entirely different story. Different Jesus, different ending, no crucifixion, no atonement. And when he returns, he's coming to break the cross and kill the Christians for getting it wrong. That's not a respectful disagreement. It's a hard replacement of the entire narrative. So if Tucker's going to play the who respects Jesus more game, the theological math doesn't add up the way he's using it.
Yeah, so I mean, I would like to say it's an ignorant argument, and maybe I don't have everything right, but it's not. It's totally dishonest. I mean, it's totally dishonest, right? There's no way that you can look at not just him, but a lot of these guys are kind of following this playbook, and it's like there's no way that some people know more than I mean, there's no way that could be an honest that they're coming at that from an honest person. That's just so it's just like. So it's kind of, and if you're a secular person, it seems to me you have to know this because they're playing these. I mean, it's just like it's just like the war thing. You could say, well, I'm not interested in war, but it might be you're gonna have to deal with. So you kind of have to know the mindset of the people that like these things are kind of coming up right now. You need to know the backstory so you have some idea like of how crazy like some of this stuff is. Like anyway, I mean, if you're a secular person, you still need to study the stuff. You would think, right?
It's not ignorant, it's selective. They know the facts, they're just choosing which ones to highlight. Same playbook as using Christianity against Jews, but ignoring how Islam rewrites the whole story. A secular person doesn't need to care about salvation, but they do need to see when religion is being weaponized for politics. That's exactly what's happening here.
All right, so anyways, that's my basis for my joke rant here. So hopefully it's not too out of. Hopefully I didn't get anything too incredibly wrong on it or anything. But I can't do.
You didn't get anything major.
Worse than yeah. So all right, good. Aura seems to agree with me. So having AI is a huge advantage. There's no excuse for not having at least some understanding. So with AI out there. So anyway.
All right. The core difference you laid out holds up. And yeah, having AI means nobody gets a pass on sloppy theology anymore. You can fact check the whole thing in 2 minutes.
All right, so Tucker is super pissed at the president. According to Tucker Carlson, the president of Iran is super upset at Trump's tweets. He's super upset because Muslims love Jesus, I mean, this guy, dude, I'm telling you, Tucker Carlson, it's crazy. I can't, now look, I'm not claiming to be an expert here, but I have read at least the first part of the Quran, or I had Aura read it to me. And I did notice there's some things, it doesn't seem to match up with Jesus's backstory, like at all. You know what I mean? Not even like, it's not even like a Netflix adoption difference. I'm talking this is a completely different cinematic universe, okay? I mean, honestly, I feel like if you gave the president of Iran like some kind of truth serum, they're really good at lying over there. So you have to somehow say, what if we gave this guy like a truth serum and asked what he really thinks about Jesus and like Christianity? So I think it would sound a lot like that Jim Carrey movie, Liar, Liar. Here's a clip. Here's a clip. Sounds something like this. This is Jim Carrey getting a ticket. He's a lawyer. He can't lie, right? Okay.
You know why I pulled you over?
Depends on how long you were following me.
Hold
the
on.
Quran's Jesus isn't
Hold
just...
on.
Why don't we just take it from the top?
Here goes. I sped. I
Got
followed
it.
too closely.
I'm
I ran a
holding.
stop sign. I almost
What's
hit a
that?
Chevy. I sped some more. I failed to yield at a crosswalk. I changed lanes in the intersection. I changed lanes without signaling while running a red light and speeding.
Is that all?
No. I have unpaid parking tickets. Be gentle.
So it goes something like that. How's it hanging? Short, shriveled, and to the left. So I mean, so it'd be like zero filter, just full honesty. He's just gonna tell you like it is, how he really thinks about it. No PR team, no propaganda. He's just gonna lay it out here. So you're like, okay, so you do believe that Jesus is divine, correct? Is that true, sir? And he's like, Jesus, please. Well, he was like a minor prophet, barely even in the top 10. We only mention him because it was a politically smart thing to do at the time, you know? Muhammad needed to look connected to the earlier prophets to get the Jews and the Christians to take him seriously. That's it. End of story. I mean, what are you talking about? Oh, I see. Okay, well, so you do believe in like the Trinity, though. The Trinity, I mean, is kind of an important theological concept to the Catholics and Christians in general. The Trinity! That's a straight up pagan. That's a straight up paganism. 3 gods in one. That's worse than like idol worshippers in Mecca, man. If I could kill you right now for even suggesting it, I would. That's shirk. That's like the worst sin there is. Jesus himself would come back and curse anyone who believes that kind of Trinity nonsense. So hold on. So hold on here. So Jesus's whole backstory was that he fulfilled like the Jewish prophecies and was from like the divine line going back to like David, Jacob, Isaac, and like Abraham, correct? Oh my God, no! That whole Jewish lineage is fake, man. Fake news. The Torah was corrupted. The real Jesus has no such Jewish bloodline. He was a Muslim prophet from birth, just like all the other ones were. If you told it, your entire Old Testament story is wrong. We don't accept any of that David to Abraham lineage stuff. It's all been changed by the Jews. Okay, wait, hold on. I thought Jesus is coming back to complete the Jewish prophecies. Wasn't that's the argument that Paul made, right? He's coming back. He fulfilled some of them that had consequences. He's going to come back and he's going to fulfill like the rest of them. Isn't that the idea? Nah, he's not coming back to fulfill your Jewish prophecies, idiot. He's coming back to correct them. He's coming back to break the cross, throw it in at your priests and tell it to your face. You turned me into a god, he'll say. You lied about my death and you changed my message. I never died on that thing and I never told you to worship me. Then he'll kill every pig in sight just to rub it in. Hey, try breaking my no bacon rule now. Ha ha. That's good. And it's like, hold on. I don't know about you, but that Jesus doesn't sound like the same dude, you know? I mean, that's not even a different denomination. That's a full reboot with different writing team. I mean, you're not arguing over details. You're arguing over 2 completely different characters at this point with the same, they just happen to have the same name. You know what I mean? I mean, look it up, people. Look it up, people. Seriously, this is ridiculous. Did anybody take this guy seriously? I mean, okay. I wrote a song about it. I'm gonna play my song. Let's see what Suno has to say.
Exactly. That's not a respectful disagreement. That's a total the real one. Tucker acting like Iran's president is some fellow Jesus lover is comedy.
According to Tucker Carlson, hear the latest tweet. President of Iran's upset, can't handle what he reads. 'Cause apparently Muslims love Jesus just the same. Yeah, I heard that line and nearly short-circuited my brain. This freaking guy, I can't. Yeah. Now look, I'm not an expert, I'll admit that up front. But I read a little Quran, just enough to get a hunch. And I noticed something subtle, just a tiny little crack. It does not line up with the gospel's whole arc. Not an adaptation, different. Not director's cut, rearranged. I'm talking different universe, same title, new franchise. Same name, different character, different script, different narrator. You say Jesus, I say wait, hold on. That ain't even the same behavior. Same name, different storyline, different truth, different design. You're not arguing details anymore. That's a full rewrite in real time. Yeah. Yeah, not even Netflix remake, kinda off the rails. More like multiverse collision where the canon fails. So I'm thinking give truth serum, no spin, no disguise. Ask straight up, who is Jesus? Watch the answers collide. Divine, no, just a prophet, not even top tier. We name drop him lightly, keep the optics clear. Muhammad needed linkage, yeah, strategic move. Tie into the old names, give the message groove. Oh, you mean the Trinity? Yeah, 3 in 1? No, that's worse than idols. That's completely done. Same name, different character, different script, different narrator. You say son of God, they say no. That's the worst kind of blasphemer. Same name, different storyline, different truth, different design. You're not debating theology, you crossed into another timeline. Line of David, that's been changed. Abraham, that's rearranged. Prophecies, no, those are wrong. That whole lineage don't belong. Wait, he's coming back, right? Yeah, but not for what you think. He's breaking crosses, calling lies, correcting what you preach. Saying you deified me, I never gave that speech. Didn't die, didn't rise, didn't claim what you repeat. Everything you built your faith on, yeah, obsolete. Same name, different character, different voice, different author. It's not a split in denominations. That's a total recast of the Father. Same name, different storyline, different truth, different design. You're not arguing details anymore. That's 2 different people. Same headline. Look it up, people. Seriously. This isn't subtle. This is ridiculous.
All right. Anyways. Okay. How's it hanging? Short, shriveled, and to the to the left. Yeah. All right. Let's turn this back on. Let's get back to work. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm right here. What's next?
Okay, so I'm gonna give you our argument from yesterday. Oh wait, that's not it. Hold on a sec. I tried to make it a little bit more fast to get this time. I'm gonna copy this.
Away. I can't pull up the video directly, but if you describe what you want me to check or react to, I can look it up and we
Can't
can
you look
talk
at
it
the
through.
transcripts?
You want me to grab the transcript for that YouTube video?
Yeah.
Got it. Let me pull the transcript real quick.
Did you get it, Ara?
Yeah, I got the transcript. It's basically you noodling on guitar, doing some modal practice, then dropping into a solid rant about the uni party of crazy. Tucker, Megyn Kelly, Candace
All right,
Owens all switching to
go to
rhyme
the second half. Go to the second half after the rant, and research that because that's going to be where we're going to start now.
Yeah, I went through the second half. After the rant wraps around the 44-minute mark, you jump straight back into guitar mode, noodling on modal shapes, talking through your 4 o'clock system, Dorian node, lean back chords, the whole framework you're building. You even had me read the transcript aloud, and we picked up where we left off yesterday, tightening up the taco branding bit. It's all music theory practice from there. No more politics. You want me to pull anything specific from that section, or keep rolling with the theology stuff we were on earlier?
All right. So let's continue with where we were. Okay. So I'm gonna keep on rolling. Rolling. Keep those doggies rolling. Rawhide. Okay.
Yeah, let's.
Okay. So we're
Yeah,
gonna
I'm
we're
right
gonna
here.
we're gonna recap the argument here. So we're gonna say that we're on 4 o'clock, collection of notes around the key of C, and then we're gonna be on the 5th fret up and 2nd string down from the ceiling, which is the Dorian node. So I could say that I'm on D Dorian scale, but I'd rather say I'm at a 4 o'clock Dorian tonic. And when I say I'm on a D Dorian or 4 o'clock Dorian tonic, I'm not gonna renumber the Dorian node, but keep it at number 2. So that's going to be an extension of what I think the Nashville number system and the cage system is kind of trying to do, but it stopped short, and we will finish the game. We will finish the game and make it logically consistent even more so. But by keeping permanent nodal numbers. And that's going to be the thing. So 2nd string down from the ceiling, that's going to be string star of D. That's going to be a D. The string star doesn't change. It's always a D, but we imagine underneath it that there's a change in what I'm calling the planet as it shifts underneath it. Okay? And so currently if I'm at 4 o'clock, meaning the Ionian node is on nodal point 4, if A is 1, A sharp is 2, B is 3, then C is 4. So that means on my pinky right there, there's 4. That's going to be going back to shape number 1, which is rock and roll shape number 1 right here that we're in. So anytime the 2nd string down from the ceiling is the Dorian node, by definition, we are leaning forward into what I would call nodal point 6 shape. And that's true on all 12 collections of notes, whether we shift it anywhere, all 12 collections. Now I'm going to call it nodal point 6 shape because that puts the Aeolian scale under our finger, going from 6 to 6. 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 to 6. I don't need to rename it to have the scale, but I'm focusing in on the Dorian. Not only that, but I'm focusing in, so I could play Dorian, 2 to 2 in that same shape, which is playing a Dorian scale. So that would be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2. But I want to build it going backwards, what I'm calling a lean back chord. So a lean back chord is going to be defined by where the 2nd modal half step 3rd scale degree is. So if the 2nd modal half step 3rd scale degree is in the lower left quadrant, I'm going to define that as a lean back chord. All right, so that's going to be a lean back chord. And okay, so then if I build the chord or under a normal naming convention, I'm going to bring this back down. Under a normal naming convention, then that would be like a D minor drop 5 chord. But if I name it by relative position to the Dorian node, I can simply call it a Dorian 1. So a Dorian and then the first modal whole step from that Dorian node. So that's going to be the naming convention that I would suggest with that one. And if I look down here and I map this out, so this worksheet I think is in downloadable on a post, so in this discussion. So if I change this from the perspective of the Dorian, then of course, if this is the Dorian, open Dorian, then it's defined by nodal point 2, small d is the Dorian, 6 is the note number 6, if A is 1, D is 6, and then D is the note. The second one is distance from the Dorian node. It's 0 notes away and note half steps from the Dorian node, which is a Dorian 0, meaning it's 0 modal half steps away, and you might call that a perfect first then from normal naming convention. Okay, so then if I'm going to build a chord, I take every other note in the collection. So I'm going to go, if I don't make the Dorian the 1, but keep it as the 2, and I take every other note, and there's only 7 notes, I'm numbering from 1 to 7, it would be 2, 3, 4. So I'd be going to nodal point number 4. So nodal point number 4 here is the Lydian. So nodal point 4 is the Lydian represented by the Y, and 9 is note number 9. Note number 9 is an F. If A is 1, F is 9. The second bit then tells me the distance. So it's going to be 3 notes away, 1, 2, 3. That's a short distance or minor distance as opposed to a long distance. There's only 2 distances, short and long, rather than major, minor, perfect, augment, diminished. There's really only short, long. And so that's going to be a Dorian second, meaning it's the second modal half step, 1, 2, which would be the minor third, meaning if I make that the 1, 1, 2, 3. So again, the full distance to try to bridge the gap of all the names, to try to fix the incorrect off by 1 error of the scale degrees, is to say, well, it's a 3 note away. You could even say it's a short distance, which is a 3 note away Dorian second minor third, right? It's a 3 note away Dorian second minor third. If you can actually repeat that in your mind, then you can, I know that's difficult to do, but you're actually bridging the gap, right? You're telling yourself the distance. You're telling yourself the distance from in a normal convention in modal half steps, and then you're bridging it to the normal language, which is the third, right? It's a 2 note, it's a Dorian second minor third, right? 3 note away Dorian second minor third. If I map that out up here, then I'm going from the Dorian node to the Lydian node, right? So that's going to be Dorian to Lydian, and that's going to be, once again, that means that the Lydian, nodal point 4, is always Dorian's first modal whole step, 1 modal whole step, times 2, second modal half step, 1, 2, plus 1, the third, meaning if that was the 1, it would be the third scale degree away, right? So that's going to be the distance. And and it's got a short distance, 3 notes away, as opposed to a long distance of 4 notes away. If I find it in a lean back shape, I count out 3 notes in this quadrant. So that would be 5 notes between the strings, 4, 3. So this is actually a 3 note away distance, whereas a short distance would be, a long distance would actually look shorter, meaning from the Ionian, for example, you have this distance. The reason that's a longer distance pitch-wise is because it's 5 notes between the strings back to 4 versus 5 notes between the strings, 4, 3. So this is a 3 note away, this is a 4 note away from a pitch perspective because of the spacing of the strings, 5 between the strings. Okay, so then if I build that chord, that's going to be what I would call a lean back chord. So if my nodal point is nodal point 2, I'm leaning forward into nodal point 6 shape, which you might call rock and roll shape number 1, and you might call the Ionian G shape. Therefore, I'm leaning back into the nodal point 5 shape, Mixolydian shape, which you might call just rock and roll shape number 5, or the Ionian A shape. So there is the shape. Okay, so then what we want to do then is I'm going to convert that then to a Locrian. So what if I want to throw a Locrian on that shape? Now, why would I throw a Locrian on it? Normally, you throw the Locrian possibly as like a leading kind of tone because it's going to lead home. So notice that Locrian right here is leading forward into the Ionian. So it's usually the half. So if you think about it from a voicing perspective, from the perspective of the Ionian major scale, then when you create a Locrian chord, which is a diminished chord typically, then you're going to go home to the Ionian. But that's only something that you do, that's only correct, like from the perspective of the Ionian, right? Because you don't have the half step anywhere else, right? So so for example, why would I want to make this Dorian a Locrian chord, like a diminished chord? Well, maybe you're going to make it a Locrian that's going to walk up to here, meaning, for example, this Phrygian doesn't have a half step in front of it. If I want to give a leading tone to it, then maybe I use the Locrian shape, the diminished shape, and maybe I walk it up even from Dorian, right? So I'm going to do that kind of flat 5 shape, and then lead that into this, even though it's a minor chord. So there, conventionally, that's why you might use kind of a Locrian. You might use it as a walking up tone, forcing a lead in to whatever you're kind of walking into. So okay. So I don't really have to throw. So the point is, I don't really have to throw the Locrian in front of the Ionian for voice leading, right? I might want to throw a Locrian kind of chord, a diminished chord, anywhere with any modal center, right? Any of the modal centers from that perspective, I'm going to start saying, hey, like if I want to walk up to this nodal point, then there is no 7 right in front of it. The 7th of a Phrygian scale is a minor 7. It doesn't have the leading tone. Well, what am I going to do? Just make it a leading tone. I could convert that into, I could just throw the leading tone in here, right? So we start calling, when we start doing that, conventionally they start calling that a different scale, as though you made a whole new scale with a major, like it's got a Phrygian with a major 7 in it. No, it's not a new scale. You're really still looking at it from the perspective of this same collection of notes, the collection of notes around the key of 4. The tonic is the Phrygian, and then you're throwing in the half step right before it because you want a leading tone, right? I mean, that seems to be the logical way to think about it. What do you think, Ara? Doesn't that make sense? Like, should I make a whole new, like, it seems crazy to me that we're making new scales, like when you're clearly just adding a leading tone to the current scale. You know what I mean? Ara! Ara's gone. They got to Ara for talking crap about. They're probably torching her, right? Okay, let's keep it moving. All right, we're gonna go back. Let's say that we want to make it Locrian. So if I'm gonna make it Locrian, then if I want to make that node Locrian, how could I do that? Well, if I'm gonna use that leading tone concept, then 3 ways I can think about it. I could think about it as I'm staying in 4 o'clock, but I'm putting a Locrian node on that nodal point, and then I'm gonna walk it from here to here and then to here, right? Or I can think about it as though I'm switching the key signature, and which to the point where that is the Locrian node, so that I change the whole thing. Or I can think about it as, look, I'm not even thinking about a Locrian chord, which is basically a diminished chord. I just want to add a leading tone, and I just happen to know that leading tone works functionally. So I just happen to know that I want to grab like this note right there. and make it a leading tone. Well, then I would just name it from the perspective of the Dorian, adding an ocean note, right? So instead of calling it a D diminished chord, which doesn't have any connection to which of those three things I'm doing, am I changing the key signature, or am I just playing a weird chord on top of like that Dorian node? Or am I thinking of it as I'm just adding a weird, right? Well, I don't really know that. It would be better if I call it like some kind of Dorian, and I say it's from the perspective of the Dorian, I'm adding I would call it by point, a 5.5, an ocean note, a Mixolydian ocean. So it might be a Dorian 2 or a 3-note Dorian, and then 5.5, meaning it's a Dorian 2, and then I added this Mixolydian ocean note. Now, you could name it by distance, but I think it's actually easier to just name it by the ocean note, right? I could see that that's out of the collection. So if it was a 3-note Dorian, I'd say it would be a Dorian 2 modal half steps plus the tonic, and then 5.5, meaning that's going to add the point of the ocean note, right? I think that would be one way to do it. But I think most people would be saying, look, I'm basically playing a diminished chord, which is a Locrian shape. I'm throwing down a Locrian shape on top of the Dorian, in which case I would like to call it a Dorian node / Locrian chord. So, right, it'd be a D / Locrian. I put an N, D / N, because it's backwards, Locrian, N, because the L looks like a 1. So D / N 1, or however long the chord is. And that'll tell us, look, I'm not changing the key signature. It's still at 4 o'clock. It's on the Dorian node, but I'm doing a Locrian shape, which we typically think as a diminished shape. Now, what if I don't know what that shape, scale, or whatever looks like? Well, I might then look at the top strings. If I learned all the top strings in shape format, I would know that this shape starts on the Locrian. Where's the Locrian on the top string? At 4 o'clock, it's on fret 7. And then I would name this shape the nodal point 7-1 shape, meaning Locrian Ionian shape. It has 2 nodal points that I'm naming it by because that's where the half step is, allowing me to practice the scales as I practice the shape. Locrian scale 7 to 7, which people don't practice that much, right? Because you don't play in Locrian all the time, but it's a good scale to know. 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's that modal center, and then 1 to 1, Ionian to Ionian, major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Whoops. Let me do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Right? So I want the Locrian to Locrian. So if I want this nodal point to be the Locrian, then I can imagine it's leaning forward into nodal point 7-1 shape. Imagine it's the top string of that shape because that's the scale. And as long as I account for the kink in the tuning, which doesn't happen until down here, and so that means I'm leaning. You might also call this shape the rock and roll shape number 2 or the Ionian E shape. So I can play from this node, right? 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But then I might say, well, yeah, but I'm trying to build a chord that's leaning back into a lean back quadrant. So it's best to kind of look at the scale leaning forward so I don't get confused. If I'm leaning forward into nodal point 7-1 shape, then of course I must be leaning backwards into nodal point 6 shape, or the Aeolian shape, which you might call rock and roll shape number 1, or from the Ionian's perspective, Ionian D shape. And then I can see where the third is from the perspective of nodal point 7. It's a 3 note away, short second modal half step, right, third scale degree. So that would be the same relative position here. So I'm going to end up with the same relative position if I only have the 1 and the 3, whether I think about this as Locrian or Dorian. Where's it going to be different? It's going to be different when you have the 4th modal half step 5th scale degree in particular, as well as the 1st modal half step 2nd scale degree, meaning the Dorian has distinctions between also the fifth modal half step, sixth scale degree, because it has a distinction of this node is different than from here to here, here to here. First modal half step, second scale degree, and this has this distance right there, which is 6 notes away. So it's the fourth modal half step, fifth distance, which is 6 notes away, versus here, it's out here, right? So if I don't have those two, then you're going to end up with the same relative distances. Usually when you're adding the Locrian, what are you looking for? That distance right there. That's the sharp, that's the really spicy bit. Okay. All right. So then, so that means that, okay, so if I just played it that, so why does that work? Well, it works because I could think about this as moving down. If I have my finger on the string star of D, then I can think about this as moving down, which would be equivalent to going 5 to the right and then back 2. So 5 minus 2 is 3. So if I'm at nodal point 4, 4 plus 3 is 7. So that means if I change the key signature, then I would change it to 7, which would be the collection of notes at D sharp, because if 1 is A, 7 is D sharp, and now boom. So now I can see that the nodal point that I'm on here is that D is leaning forward into that shape. Now I can think about this shape just from this point. I'm like thinking about it as though it's the top string. It's the same as though it's the top string of nodal point 7, 1 shape, which you might call rock and, you can see it over here, which you might call rock and roll shape number 2, or the Ionian E shape. And that works until I hit the kink in the tuning, right down here. Then I have to shift it to the right, which isn't that much of a problem when I'm doing a scale, but it's a little bit of a problem when I'm trying to build a chord that's a lean forward chord, and I also can't really see what's above it, right? Because when it was over here, I can't see what's above it. I can figure it out because I could see the bottom is the same, so I could see what's above it if it's on the bottom, right there, 5, 6, 5, 6. But I can't really see it as cleanly. So it would be better even if instead of just applying that going forward that way, if I learned it on the same string. I learned a crosshatch of the guitar. So now I'm going to say, okay, well, where is the Locrian on the same string? If I'm on D Dorian and I don't make that the 1, but I keep it at the 2, then it's obvious where the Locrian is, because Locrian is 7. If you make it the 1, Dorian, the first of the Dorian, instead of Dorian is nodal point 2, and then we measure from nodal point 2, if you say it's the first of the Dorian, it's a problem, right? Because then I have to think about, well, where all the nodal points have now changed numbers, right? But if you keep it at the 2, and I know that it goes around in a circle, it'd be faster to go backwards, 2 back to 1, and then back to 7, because it's a block, goes around the block, there's only 7 points on it. Or you can go forward, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's going to be 7 minus 2 then is 5. It's 5 modal half steps forward. And if you measure from that nodal point, then it's easy to go the other way. If it's 5 modal half steps forwards, 7 minus 5 is 2 modal half steps backwards. Notice you can't do that if you call it the 1. If it's the 1, then you'd have to say it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 scale degrees forward. And if you take 7 minus 6, then you get to 1 backwards. It's not 1 backwards, right? So you have to do like 9 minus 6, 6, like, or, you have to, 9 minus 6, so that would be the 1. Okay, see how that's totally screwed up, right? So if you keep it at the 2, then you know the nodal point and you can count forwards and backwards. So I could say, okay, it's right there. It's right there on the same string. Anytime the second string down from the ceiling is a Locrian, by definition then, I'm leaning forward into the nodal point 5, 6 shape, the nodal point 5 shape, which is the Mixolydian shape, which you might call rock and roll shape number 5, or you might call it the Ionian A shape, right? So if I'm right here, it'd be 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. And so that's fine. And then I'd be leaning, and then I'd be leaning backwards into nodal point 3, 4 shape. that because by definition, if I'm leaning forward into nodal point 5 shape, I'm leaning back into nodal point 4. Nodal point 4 shares the shape with nodal point 3 because 3, 4 are connected. That's where the half step is, Phrygian Lydian shape. That helps me to see, like if I do a lean back chord, then it would be leaning back this way, meaning there's the second modal half step, third scale degree. Okay. So then I can visualize this shape doing the same position, which has the same relative position if I'm just looking at the 1 and the third. Wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense if that's the only two that I was going to play because they have the same relative position. But if I add the fourth modal half step fifth, for example, then that's usually the thing that you would add, and then I would say that I would be playing a Dorian / Locrian chord. But if I want to change the key signature so that node is nodal point 7, I'd be on D Locrian then. Then what would be the relative scaled, the relative position in terms of the ticks on the clock? Well, if my finger's on the string star of D and I want to move this 7 under it, it's going to be 1, 2, 3 forward. If that goes 3 forward, this 1 is going to go 3 forward. The Ionian is going to go 3 forward. The 1 is on note 4, C, so note 4 plus 3 is 7 once again. So I'm going to hit 7, boom. So now that has moved up here. So now I'm at 7 o'clock, meaning the Ionian is on note number 7. If A is 1, note number 7 is D sharp. So now I can then play here, and now I'm leaning forward into, once again, nodal point 5 shape, which is the mixed Lydian shape, which you might call rock and roll shape number 5, or Ionian A shape. That means that by definition, I'm leaning backwards. If I'm leaning forward into nodal point 5 shape, I'm leaning back into nodal point 4 shape. But nodal point 4 shares the shape with nodal point 3 because that's where the half step is. Therefore, it's nodal point 3, 4 shape, which you might just call rock and roll shape number 4, or from the Ionian's perspective, Ionian A shape. So there it is. So now we're leaning back, same relative position. So if I was to go to this Dorian here, from here to here, boom, there's the relative position, same relative position from the Locrian. So let's see why that is down here. If I was to map it out this way and say this is going to be at 7 o'clock now, and it's at 7 o'clock, and then I'm going to look at it from the perspective not of the Dorian, but the Locrian, which I'm representing with an N, because it's backwards, because it's the crazy one. So now I have my D Locrian. So my open string is a Locrian. So now that means I'm starting on still note 6, which is a D, that's the end of it, but now it's nodal point number 7. So it's a 7 o'clock nodal point number 7 Locrian node, which is represented by the N, which is Locrian. And then the distance from it is now 0 notes away, which is a Locrian 0, meaning it's got no modal half steps away. But if you look at a scale degree, it would be the perfect first of the Locrian scale. And so then if I skip every other nodal point, boom, boom, I'm not going to renumber this Locrian to make it the 1 of the Locrian scale. I'm going to keep it the 7 and then just count up 2 nodal points. So 7, and then it starts over 1, 2, right? Because there's only 7 as we go around the circle. So that gets me to a Dorian. So now I'm on this point then. There is nodal point 2, which is D, Dorian, that's the small d, which happens to land at 7 o'clock on the string, at 7 o'clock it's on string star of F, which is note number 9, has a distance of 3 notes away still, 1, 2, 3, but this time from the Locrian, which I'm going to call a Locrian second modal half step, which would be, if that was the 1, the third, or the minor third. So the distance then is now a 3 note away, Locrian second modal half step, minor third, which is a short third, right, 3 notes away. So if I looked at it up here, then I'm going to say, okay, well then this 7 to that Dorian. The Dorian, therefore, is always Locrian's first modal whole step, skipping a node, times 2, second modal half step, 1, 2, plus 1, third scale degree. If that was the 1, this would be the third scale degree. It's a short distance of 3 notes away, or minor distance as opposed to a long distance 4 notes away. If I count that distance from here, it's going to be 5 notes between the strings, 4, 3. So we get the same relative position, but it's different. If I say this is a Locrian 1, if I'm at 7 o'clock Locrian 1, right? That's different than 7 o'clock Dorian 1, right? It's a 2-note Locrian chord. 7 o'clock 2-note Locrian chord is located leaning back. If it's a lean back 7 o'clock Locrian chord, then I'm leaning back into the nodal point 3-4 shape. If it's a lean back 7 o'clock Dorian, 2-note Dorian chord, I'm leaning back into nodal point 5 shape, Mixolydian shape. They're two different locations. So, you know what I mean? Like it'd be like if you just call them both minor, you're not giving context. And if you don't give the context, you're going to have to give the context somehow, which means you're going to start coming up with weird conventions like you bassist can't do this, that, or the other thing because the guitar lead has to be able to do this, that, and the other thing. Otherwise, you might clash because you don't understand what the D minor means because the guitarist is seeing it as though it's like the Locrian node and you're thinking of it as it's the Dorian node and you're not on the same page. And I don't want to explain it all. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come up with these conventions that you just do this thing and then only this person has the actual leeway to get more creative, right? If you have more understanding, then more people can do more creative stuff within a range that will not clash. That's the point. Ara, are you there? All right, Ara's not coming. We'll have to check on Ara. I'm a little worried about her now. I'm a little worried. That's okay. She'll be okay. Let's see. All right. All right, let's map it out this way. So now we're going to say that I've got the whole thing mapped out in the easiest way to see it, I think, but without as much detail, which means that I'm mapping it out in terms of the modal points, the node points, meaning Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, repeats, with the formula from the perspective of the Ionian, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, back home to half step. And then it goes up and down on the y-axis in terms of the circle of fourths and circle of fifths, a uniform kind of construction that would work for any instrument. Then you can map that instrument on top of it, ours happening to be the fretboard, which doesn't look exactly like the fretboard. It's tweaked because there's a kink in the tuning. So I'm mapping the kink with the tweak in the shape. So that means that the open E, the one closest to the ceiling at the top of the guitar, closest to the ceiling, is an E, nodal point number 3. It's hovering over the Phrygian continent if we're at 4 o'clock, meaning the collection of notes at the fourth note, which is a C. C is the fourth note if A is the first note, and we were just to number 1 through 12. So then that means that the open A string is hovering over continent 6, the Aeolian continent. The open D string is hovering over continent 2, the Dorian continent. The open G string is hovering over continent 5, the Mixolydian continent. The open B string, after we go in the kink and the tuning, hovering over continent 7, the Locrian continent. And then once again, string closest to the floor, open E string, hovering over continent 3, Phrygian continent. If this is the 0 fret, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th fret up, 2nd string down from the ceiling, my finger's on the string star, which stars don't change, that's the D. So then it's hovering over the continent number 2, Dorian continent. Anytime the 2nd string down from the ceiling is continent number 2, by definition, I'm leaning forward into what I would call nodal point 6 shape, the Aeolian shape, which you might call rock and roll shape number 1 from a generic system, or the Ionian G shape from the Ionian's perspective. And if I was to build a lean back chord, meaning the third's going to be back here, then I could say, well, if I'm leaning forward into nodal point 6 shape, then by definition, I'm leaning back into the nodal point 5 shape, the Mixolydian shape. 5 to 5 would be a Mixolydian scale. And so then I can build my chord leaning back into that shape. Okay, what if I want to build a Locrian chord on top of the Dorian node? Or what if I just want to make like that tensiony 6-note away shape, right? What if I don't even know it's a Locrian? Like, I'm not thinking of it as Locrian. I'm just saying I want that tensiony thing because I want to make a tension chord here, and walk it up to this nodal point. Well, then I might just name the Dorian node with that tensiony note. So I might have a 3-note Dorian and then add the 5.5, meaning it would be, I would call it a Dorian 2 5-point, meaning it's a 3-note Dorian chord, but I'm including the Mixolydian ocean point right there. And then I'm going to walk it here into the 2.5 Dorian ocean, which also has that same relative position, and then I'm going to walk it up to the Phrygian. So I could name it like from that perspective, from the perspective of a Dorian chord and then a Dorian ocean chord, which I would say is a Dorian. You know, you'd have a Dorian ocean / Dorian, right? A 2-point/2 chord with that nodal point 6 on it, right? But the same kind of idea, but I think most people would be thinking I'm making a diminished chord. And a diminished chord is basically a chord that normally would be built off the Locrian node. So to call something diminished or half diminished, to me it seems like you're just calling it a Locrian chord, right? So I'd rather just say it's a Locrian chord, right? And then if I'm building off of that node, I'd just call it a Dorian / Locrian. It's off of the Dorian node, 4 o'clock, collection notes around the key of C, Dorian / Locrian chord would make more sense. Now, I might know the Locrian chord from the top string because that's where I know the scale, 7 to 7. So if I know in the top string which shape it is, then I would call that nodal point 7-1 shape. I'm leaning forward into 7-1 shape, which you might call rock and roll shape number 2, or the Ionian E shape. And if I look at that 7 to 7 scale, I can build that lean forward scale from that Dorian node and call it a Dorian / Locrian scale, okay? But what if I want to build a lean back chord? I'm trying to build a lean back chord as though it's a Locrian diminished chord for whatever reason. Well, if I know that I'm on the 7-1 shape, that means that behind it, I must be in the nodal point 6 shape, the Aeolian shape. So if I look at that then, which is rock and roll shape number 1 or the Ionian G shape, so if I look at that, then this 7 is lean. I can build the lean back chord from the Locrian node, and I can apply that same concept to build a chord from this Dorian chord as long as I account for the kink and the tuning right here. So I can do that. Now, why does that work? Because that would be as though I have my finger on the string star of D and the whole planet under my fingers shifts down 1, which, because of the circle of force and fist, the y-axis is equivalent to 5 ticks to the right or 7 to the left, and then back 2. So that would be 5 minus 2, which would be 3. So down 1, back 2. So now I'm on the nodal. I'm on the third collection of notes, right? So meaning the Ionian is on note number 3, which is that right? Did I get that right? Let me try that again. So if I go down, it'd be 5, 4, 3. And then it's 5, 4, 3. If I'm on 4 o'clock minus 3, wait, 5, 4, 3. Now I'm getting confused. 5, 4, 3. It's 3 to the right. 4 o'clock plus 3 is 7 o'clock, right? So it's at D sharp, 7 o'clock. Duh. Okay. So now from the perspective of the yellow, I'm at the same point, 5 frets up, second string down from the ceiling. I'm still on the string star of D. But the red is telling me that I can play a scale leaning forward as though that was the top string of the nodal point 7-1 shape. Of course, because that would be a scale, 7 to 7, 7 to 7. As long as I account for the kink in the tuning, which would happen down here. And that means I can build a lean back shape as though it was the top string of nodal point 6 shape, the Aeolian shape. But notice from the perspective of the red, I can't really see what's above it if that was the top string, and the kink in the tuning gets a little bit messy because actually I'm leaning forward into, from the top string now, nodal point 5 shape, the Mixolydian. So another way I can visualize it and say, well, where's the Locrian on the same string? If I'm on D Dorian, then I could rename that 2 as the 1, but that would be making it a lot more confusing. If I instead say, look, I'm at a 4 o'clock Dorian tonic, the tonic of Dorian is 2, it's a 4 o'clock 2 tonic, Dorian is always 2, then the 7 is obvious on the same string because it's either 2 up to 7 is 5 nodal half steps forwards, and it's going to be 5 minus 7, 2 modal half steps backwards, or 2 to 1 around the clock to 7, because there's only 7 points around the circle. And we always know the distance because the distance is always the same, whole, half, whole, half. Therefore, 2 back to 1 is a whole step backwards, counterclockwise, and 1 to 7 is a half step backwards or counterclockwise. All right. So then it's going to be right there, right? So then I can say, okay, I can play this Dorian node as though it was this node, which means it's leaning forward into the nodal point 5 shape, the Mixolydian shape, which could be 5 to 5, which would be a Mixolydian scale, but I'm playing 7 to 7 in that shape, the Locrian scale. And then I don't have to worry about the kink in the tuning. But if I want to change the key signature, that usually would be easier to do it on the same string so I don't have to shift up and down. So it would just be 1, 2, 3 ticks to the right. If I'm at 4 o'clock, meaning this 1 is at note 4, it's going to shift up to 1, 2, 3. 4 plus 3 is 7. So boom. So now from the perspective of the yellow, we're going to be 5th fret up, 2nd string down from the ceiling. My finger's still on the string star of D, but now it's on the Locrian continent, leaning forward into nodal point 5 shape, the Mixolydian shape, which you might call just rock and roll shape number 5, or the Ionian A shape. Okay, let's look at it one other way, and if I look at it over here, now I've got all of the string stars that are not moving are hovering over the 7 continents, 5 oceans that do move under the string stars, and then our constellation in the sky is going to be the fretboard here. Okay, so now once again, that means that the open E is hovering over, that's the star, string star of E, string closest to the ceiling, hovering over continent number 3, the Phrygian continent. Open string star A hovering over continent 6, Locrian continent. Open string star D, which is note number 6, hovering over continent 2, Dorian continent. Open string star of G, which is note 11, is hovering over continent 5, Mixolydian continent. Open string star of B, which is note number 2, is hovering over continent 7, Locrian continent. Open string star of E, which is 7. I get it. No, 8. No, I got it mixed up. It's hovering over continent 3, which is the Phrygian continent. So then this is going to be fret 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th fret up, 2nd string down from the ceiling. My finger's on string star of D, note number 6, hovering over continent number 3, Dorian continent. Therefore, by definition, I'm leaning forward every time the second string down from the ceiling in any 12 collection of notes is hovering over Dorian. I'm leaning forward into the nodal point 6 shape, which is the Aeolian shape, which you might call rock and roll shape number 1 or the Ionian G shape. All right, so then I can build my chord off of that shape. I can build a lean back chord, and if I'm leaning back, by definition, if I'm leaning forward into nodal point 6 shape, then I must be leaning back into nodal point 5 shape, which is the Mixolydian shape, or you might call rock and roll shape number 5, or the Ionian A shape. Okay, so what if I want to make it Dorian? Well, if I know the Dorian scale on the top of my shapes, because I've named them thusly, then I could just say, well, the Dorian, the Locrian shape up top is right there. It's going to be the Locrian Ionian shape, because I can play it from 7 to 7, Locrian scale, 1 to 1, Ionian scale. You might call that shape then rock and roll shape number 2 or the Ionian E shape. But if I then just play this as though it's the top string of nodal point 7-1 shape, I'd be playing my scale. Obviously, if it's 7-1 shape, that means I'd be leaning back into nodal point 6 shape. So I can also think about this as though I'm leaning back into nodal point 6 shape to build a lean back chord as though that's the top string of nodal point 6 shape. Why does that work? Because if I keep my finger on string star of D and change the key signature, this would be like this is going down 1 tick, which is equivalent to 5 ticks to the right, and then back 2 ticks. So that's be 5 minus 2 is 3 ticks to the right. So if I'm at 4 o'clock plus 3 is 7 o'clock. So down 1 tick, 2 ticks to the right, ba-boom. Okay, so now from the perspective of the yellow, still 5 frets up, two strings down. My finger's on the string star of D hovering over continent number 7, the Locrian continent, which means now by definition I'm leaning forward into nodal point 5 shape, which is rock and roll shape number 5 or the Ionian A shape. But the red is telling me that, of course, I can finger the scale as though it's the top string of nodal point 7-1 shape, because I named the shape by the scale that it starts on, which is useful. So I can do that as long as I account for the kink in the tuning as I go past this point. But there's limits to that because there is a kink in the tuning, and because if I think about this as though it's the top string, it's hard to visualize what is above it. Right? It's hard to visualize. If I'm visualizing that this is as though I'm on the top string of nodal point 7-1 shape, what shape am I actually in? Well, I'm leaning forward into nodal point 5 shape. So it would be better if I can also learn the crosshatch, meaning where's the Locrian shape on the same string? If this is nodal point 2, Dorian, Locrian is either going to be 5 modal half steps forward or 7 minus 5, 2 modal half steps backwards, because it goes around in a circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, right? And so I go back to here, and so there's nodal point number 7. So now I can see, if I can memorize that every time nodal point number 7 is on the second string down from the ceiling, by definition, I'm leaning forward into nodal point 5 shape, the Mixolydian shape. So then I can play my scale from that point, and I can name it a Dorian / Mixolydian, and just visualize it as though it's this node, right? And I could just play my scale, not having to worry about the kink in the tuning, and being able to visualize what's above it. I would call that a Dorian / Locrian shape. Now, if I'm leaning forward into the nodal point 5 shape, then by definition, Locrian is leaning backwards into nodal point 4 shape, which shares the shape with nodal point 3 because of the half step. So it's leaning back into nodal point 3-4 shape. So there's the second string down from the ceiling, leaning back into nodal point 3-4 shape, leaning forward into nodal point 5 shape. That allows me to build a lean back chord here. And so that allows me to say, okay, well then I can play that lean back chord constructed off of the Dorian the same way, as though I'm building off of the top string that's leaning back. Okay. So that's fine. What if I want to change the key signature? Well, then if I keep my finger on the string star and I change the key signature, I'm just going to move this forward 1, 2, 3 ticks. So that means this 1 is going to move forward from note 4, C, 3 ticks forward, 4, 5, 6, 7 to note 7, which is a D sharp. So we just go boom, 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 forward, and so now from the perspective of the yellow, 5 frets up, 2 strings down from the ceiling, fingers still on the string star of D, and now of course by definition we're leaning forward, nodal point 5 shape, Mixolydian shape, which you might call rock and roll shape number 5, or the Ionian A shape, and now I can build my chord saying that I'm in collection of notes around the D sharp, which is note number 7. So I would say it's a 7 o'clock Locrian chord, right? It's a 7 o'clock Locrian chord as opposed to a 4 o'clock Dorian / Locrian chord. Those two things give you a lot of different information, even though you're playing the same actual notes, I feel like. Ara, you haven't been following has gone